welcome to the station of decapitation without your head. I'm Nasty Neil, and I'm joined by Mary Beth McAndrews, Dreadcentral editor and director of Bystanders, which is out right now.
Ooh, hello. Thank you for having me. Wow, what an incredible intro, by the way. I love that.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I'm glad you said that, and you just be like, why am I here now? Let me get out of here. This idiot here. But no, so give people an idea of Bystanders if they're not aware yet.
Yeah, so Bystanders is a rape revenge thriller where a young girl named Abby goes to a frat party, and she is about to graduate high school. And when she goes there with her friends, the frat boys drug, assault, and tie them up to hunt them in the woods. And when they are, Abby escapes. She's the only survivor. She runs across a couple coming home from a wedding. She flags them down to get help, and their things kind of spiral from there.
Yeah. Things go much differently than I expected when I was watching it.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Also, I've gotten that feedback from quite a few people, which I love. I very much love that.
It's a good. Also, when you're going over like what kind of movie it is, it sounds very dark, and it is very dark. But there's also a lot of comedy in the movie. Was that hard to balance because you're dealing with dark themes, and then you're also there's a lot of comedy in the movie, dark comedy in the movie.
Yeah, so I think the tone was something that came while we were shooting and while we were editing. So Garrett Murphy, who plays Gray, brought a lot of comedy to the character. He gave him just like a little bit more of a dry humor edge, and I was super into it, especially in the edit. Like there were some takes where he was more serious, but in just editing and seeing how one Jamie Alvey, the writer, had put dark comedy in there, but then how that was kind of being played with by Garrett, but then also Jamie and some of the frat boys. And I think that, especially in the edit, it was a fun kind of balance between keeping it like having these like silly moments, but then keeping it serious. And I think it's important though to have that tone because a lot of rape revenge movies are very serious for very good reason.
Yeah.
And I think this movie is a little bit different in its approach, but it doesn't make it any less serious. It just takes a different approach to the subject matter. And especially because, I mean, like anyone with trauma, not anyone, but a lot of us with trauma deal with the trauma with dark humor. Like I certainly do myself. So it just felt kind of realistic too, to like like a survivor's experience of leaning into dark comedy when, dealing with their trauma, even though here dealing with your trauma is murder. But yeah.
And I would think a lot, maybe most, I would think a lot of horror people would totally agree with that. That, even a horror movie itself is escaping reality or dealing with something in your personal life.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it was a fun puzzle to kind of put together and figure out when to put the humor, when to pull back, when to play. Yeah, it was I wasn't expecting that as much, but I had a lot of fun doing it, and I'm really glad that it's working for a lot of people who have seen it.
So this was your directorial debut, first feature film. Had you done shorts or anything before?
No, a lot of my experience, and like I didn't really think about this because I hadn't directed like a fiction film of any length. But before I was working in horror journalism full time, I worked in production, but TV production and did like digital production for like Discovery Channel and stuff like that. So I'd had experience on set and producing smaller things that were very different. But so I had a little bit of experience, sort of like nebulously similar. And then I didn't realize how much I could bring. I obviously learned so much directing, but I brought a little bit of that kind of awareness to the set. So yeah, this was like my first big like narrative fiction thing.
Just actually, how did that all come about? Like, okay, I'm going to direct the movie.
It fell in my lap, which is like I'm very lucky, but basically it's a long story in terms of like it's a very long timeline, but Jamie Alvey wrote the script in 2017, the first draft. I was friends with her on Twitter. We were freelance writers for some of the same sites, and I was not currently. I was at the time in Chicago getting my master's, and I was studying rape revenge films. Actually, I was writing my thesis on women-directed rape revenge films and the the creating of a theoretical female gaze, and I was super into that topic, still am obviously. And I read Jamie's script because I saw her posting about it and was like, this is incredible. Like one day I just want to be involved with this movie somehow. I don't know how. I'm not in the film world, but like I don't know what to do, how, but I want to be. And then flash forward to I got my job at Dreadcentral years later. I got involved on the production side a little bit with the label, the Dread label, because Epic Pictures Group owns Dreadcentral and Dread label is theirs. So like we're all a little ecosystem. So I was working on some of the low budget films and kind of helping develop. And I brought them the script and said, we have to make this. Like we can make it cheap, we can make it fast. And I think it's a really important story to tell. And why wouldn't we? And after, development takes forever, getting things greenlit takes forever, but the script finally got greenlit. And my boss said, well, you know so much about this topic. You've studied it, you've watched so many movies, why don't you direct it? And I said, ooh, are you sure? And he said, why not? And I said, well, this will never happen ever again in my entire life. And if I say no, I think that's going to be the biggest regret of my life. So I said, all right, we're going to try it and we're going to see what happens. And I loved it. I had an amazing experience. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but also one of the most exciting and fulfilling things I've ever done. Mm-hmm. And I want to do it again.
Well, that'll be my question later on about doing it again. So we already answered that, but that's a good sign. It's better than I never want to do this again.
Yeah. I was like, nope, fuck movies, never again.
Never watch them or be involved in them.
I know.
So Jamie is also in the movie. Was she always going to be in the movie? Do you know she wrote with her to play the character?
Yeah, so she came in saying, I want to play Claire. And it was kind of a no-brainer just because she knew the character so well, and it made sense for her to play the character. Because she'd been writing them forever, she knew it, and also because we were an indie production and casting was going so fast, it like even from a logistic perspective was just like way easier. And it was helpful to have her know the characters and be able to like talk about the characters too, and like have that knowledge of like the backstories that she had written and thought about, and working with the other actors as well.
Yeah, and I've noticed a lot of my, especially female friends in the indie film world, like they said they weren't getting the roles that they wanted, so they decided to write roles that they wanted. And so I don't know if that's a similar thing. Probably more of a question for her.
But. I mean, it's also like it is very much what she what she was thinking, because I think a lot of the time, like the horror roles, especially, there are only this is like it's very generalization because it's not, but like it seems like there are a lot of like only a couple buckets, and there are only certain kinds of people that can go into the good cast in those buckets. And so I think that this was a big chance to write something a little bit different than what she was seeing, not just for actors, but just like in terms of female characters in general too.
Mm-hmm. You said you did your thesis on rape revenge films. So actually, a couple questions there. What did like the people think? Like this is what I'm gonna. Was anyone like, whoa, this is a weird topic?
Oh yeah, all of them. A lot of people were like, the fuck? And I was like, you told me I could do whatever I wanted, and I'm studying. Like I was getting it in film and gender studies, so it was like,
well, yeah, that makes more sense.
But it was just like funny talking about it because I went to University of Chicago, which is like pretty hoity-toity, and a lot of these people are writing about the classics and like writing about classic literature, and then I'm like, hi, I'm writing about rape revenge films and how and like all this stuff, and everyone was like, what? And I said, I don't know, and it was just and again, it was a very gendered divide. Like a lot of my female in my cohort were very excited about it, and I got a lot of pushback from the male members of my cohort just because they didn't get it. So it was definitely an interesting experience, like explaining the research and presenting the research and just like getting the reactions. But my advisor loved it. She was like, yeah.
I was going to say, you would think some people, I think, might think like it might be reverse of that. Like the women would be against the idea.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of the guys were like, someone legitimately asked me, so you're endorsing murder? And I said, I'm writing about movies. Like, I never said I endorsed murder. What are you talking about? He's like, so
Yeah,
do you want to kill all men? I was like, what? Like, were you listening to what I was saying? Like, that's not at all. Like, it was very interesting. Like, a lot of people taking assumptions about me and like the subject and like projecting onto it. And I was like,
yeah.
I don't really think you're paying attention to what I'm talking about, but
Yeah,
okay.
even just that idea in general, like almost every movie you watch, if you endorsed like everything going on in it, you'd be like an insane person. Like, every movie has like
Like, I'm sorry, did you
something
ask
bad
James
that happens.
Wan? Did you ask
Yeah,
James Wan and Lee Winnell if they like fucking like endorsed trapping people in traps and like torturing them to death?
right,
Like, have you
right.
asked them that question? Please go
Yeah.
ask them that question too if you're gonna ask me that
Maybe
question.
it's a yes. I don't know, but yeah.
I mean,
No, but it's
hey,
very
it could be. I don't know.
it's so weird. I don't want to say what's your favorite rape revenge movie. That sounds strange. But what are like the ones that would inspired you, I guess?
So Revenge by Coralie Farge is like a huge
Oh
one.
yeah, it's
So
great.
director of The Substance, everybody, if you have not seen her first film Revenge, please go see it. It is an incredible subversion of rape revenge tropes, and it was actually that movie changed my life. It was the movie that made me realize I want to go to grad school, and it's been a huge inspiration. But another one that was a big inspiration, there's two actually. MFA by Natalia Leet, which
I've
is a
seen that.
really good indie rape revenge film about a woman in a master's of fine arts program who's assaulted. And then it's basically promising young woman, but way better, in my humble opinion. Um, and then the other one is called Violation, and it was at Sundance in 2020. And it's on Shutter if anyone's interested. And that one's a pretty harrowing watch, but I also like it was a huge inspiration for how we did our cinematography and like the dreamy, hazy quality we wanted to give parts of the
Yeah.
movie. So those three are the big kind of like the top three that really influenced me and also are my favorites. Like if someone's like, oh, I want to watch a rape revenge movie, what should I watch? And I'm like, all right, here are the top three. And Revenge is always my number one because it's so much more of a fantasy. Like it's so much more crazy that it's a little bit easier to detach yourself from it. The other two are more realistic, so they're a little bit harder to watch in my opinion, but Revenge
Mhm.
has got that good crazy like, oh, this could never happen, but I love it anyway vibes to it.
Yeah, I saw that at Boston Underground Film Festival before it had any buzz,
Oh,
and so it was
cool.
it was awesome, and yeah, it's a
That's so
wild
cool.
movie. Yeah, super very violent, especially at the end, and
But
well,
like,
through
isn't
the
that
whole movie
crazy now?
really.
You saw that and now she's nominated for
Yeah,
best
no,
director. Like, isn't that so cool? Oh,
yeah,
anyway,
because
it
I'd
just
almost had her on the show, but it didn't work out for some reason, and some of the cast were apprehensive of doing the show because they said it wasn't a horror movie, which I mean, I don't know. I know I'm not someone who likes to argue over genre, but but I do
yeah.
regret not getting like fighting harder to get her on the show. It'd have been pretty wild.
And she's really nice too. She's like, I've only talked to her once, but she's like the nicest person. And I was like, I want to be you when I grow up. I have a
Yep.
giant tattoo of revenge on my thigh. So like
Oh,
obviously.
really?
Oh yeah. It's her, it's the main girl's head split in half. So it's like her with a lollipop, and then in the middle it's her after she gets hurt and it's like surrounded by
Oh, nice.
fire.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think when
yeah.
you first seen her head split in half, people had a different idea, but now, yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no.
So, but yeah, and we'll talk actually about festivals. I know because you had a festival run. Uh, they're very important, I think, no matter what. If you're just want to watch movies, if you're part of movies in any way. But one of the big things is like when I went to see Revenge, it didn't really have a buzz. It was playing at the festival, but I didn't know anything about it. And if you go into these movies not knowing anything, to me, that's the best way to enjoy something.
As like a horror journalist, I've been going to festivals, covering them for years. So like I love horror film festivals because I have found some of my favorite movies from these. Like I found Violation at a festival. I didn't know anything about it, and then I became its like biggest champion. And I think that that's so fun about festivals is you can find stuff that you've never seen and you can champion it and be like, please, please distribute this movie. And sometimes they never see the light of day, which is really depressing. But I feel like what's happening more from what I've seen is like more stuff is even the weird stuff is getting picked up, which is awesome. Like I
Yeah,
think that the indie horror, the growth of indie horror like recently and people realizing it's such an incredible space to be looking at in terms of original storytelling, weird creative storytelling on super low budgets.
Yeah,
I
for
think
low
more
budget stuff, that's like one of the only things that really gets theatrically released and people go see. I go to the
exactly,
movies every weekend,
exactly,
so yeah.
exactly. It's always horror. And so I think and like in the VOD landscape, I know that, direct DVD it used to be such a curse, but now I think
Yeah,
it's such a blessing to just like,
yeah.
oh, more people are more willing to watch it on streaming.
Mhm.
So I think that festivals are such a good place to find these things and also just like experience different perspectives. You know what I mean? Like I've just watched so many incredible things. I mean, and this was nice this year because I went to a lot of festivals just as a filmmaker. I wasn't
Mhm.
covering anything, so I could just watch stuff instead of having to like, okay, I have to watch this and run to this interview and then write the review and this and that, which I love. But it was a very awesome experience to get to just like talk to other filmmakers like more casually and get to watch other movies and really just like enjoy cool indie cinema. Like film festivals rule. And if you can go to an indie film festival, even one locally, and most people have them pretty locally, please look
Yeah,
into it. They're the
yeah.
best.
Yeah, I always mention on the show, like, look in, you probably have one locally, like you said, or even like a local, weird, underground, like a theater that shows a lot of weird stuff. And,
Yeah, exactly. Where are you based, by the way?
I'm in Massachusetts.
Okay, cool. I'm in Maryland, so I'm also on the East Coast.
Okay, yeah. So I go up, Boston
Oh
a
yeah,
lot. I'm
Boston
on campus
Underground.
now.
Duh. You said Boston
Yeah. Well, I
Underground.
could have been from anywhere and just happened to go to Boston Underground Film Festival, but I don't make about me, but so I went to film festivals, for the show, and through those I made friends, and then a couple friends of mine let us made a short film and played things, and then with them I made a feature film that's played at the festivals, and so I went around with that, and it was an
Wait,
amazing
what's it called?
experience. It
What's it
was
called?
the Once in Future Smash and Zone
Oh!
Two.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Cool. Sorry, I, like, didn't connect the fucking dots in my head. Oh, that's amazing.
So yeah, it was a wild experience, like you said, going as a different perspective, like
Right? Well,
I'm
because
not
like,
there interviewing people, and yeah,
it's like you get to be the star a little bit, even if it's like
yeah, yeah,
it's like as you say, I say star, like, it's an indie, but still, like, people coming up to you and, like, telling you how much they like what you did, and it's just, like it feels really good, and it feels like you've at film festivals, like, you're with your people because I feel like, especially with indie horror festivals, you're going with people who want to see weird indie stuff. Like they understand that indies are made with no money and that there's like a low budget DIY quality to a lot of these things that aren't perfect, but that a lot of people are like, this is bullshit. But at festivals, people are like, I love that. And like they really
yeah, yeah,
understand that. And that's why I love festivals, especially as a filmmaker. Like people just get it. And that's really awesome to have it like to show your film for the first time to audiences that get it is it's good. It's a good way to start. It's a good, like, confidence booster, I think, too.
100%, yeah, yeah. When I went in the first one, I was like, "What are people? What am I doing here?
I
Like,
know.
what are they gonna think of this movie?" And so,
Why did I do this? They're gonna hate it. Everything is
yeah,
terrible, and then they
yeah.
watch it, and
And
you're
then when you
like,
get the first laugh, I was like, "Oh, people like this."
right? Oh my god, that first laugh when, like, something lands and there's a reaction, you're like, "Oh, thank God." Like, there is nothing more of a like, there's not a better feeling than that like, feeling of relief when people react and you're like, "Oh, fuck,
Yeah,
thank God." One
yeah,
person gets it.
yeah. And like you said, though, everyone treats everyone equally. So, like, there's
Yes.
obviously some big, movie makers there, and people who maybe they're just making something for a couple $1,000, and everyone's, equal. They all share that they all love movies, or they like making movies, or
We're all the
anything
same
like
at the
that.
bar afterward, we're all hanging out and
Yeah,
drinking and
yeah,
talking about our favorite slashers, like and that's what like, that's my favorite when it's like, "Oh, we are all, like, just bonding at the bar." Who care? Like you said, who cares if you're like, "Oh, this is your 4th movie and it's with a distributor" if it's a big distributor, or, like, it's your 1st movie made with $2. Like, everyone
right.
is on an equal playing field, and it makes you feel good as a filmmaker, like, you don't the hierarchy doesn't feel as real at the festivals, which is nice. It's a little more equalizing, which is exactly what you said.
Yeah, yeah. And also just shorts too. Like, it's probably your only time to see the shorts on the big screen with an audience. And there are more platforms that they could go to after, but it's probably gonna be the only time you get to see them, with a bunch of people
Watch
on the
more
big screen.
shorts, everyone. I'm guilty of not watching enough shorts at festivals. I really am, but there's just such cool stuff and so many filmmakers making amazing work with the shorts. So I should follow my own advice, but don't sell the shorts short, everyone, at festivals.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then it's cool. You're like, oh, this was cool. Then you can go and check out their other work. And
Yeah, and they get to be they direct something, a feature, and you're like, I watched their short at Nightmares in
yeah,
Ohio. There's
yeah,
something cool about that.
I might not even know them, or sometimes you do, or even if you don't, you do feel like proud of them. You're like, oh wow, I saw their short
Yeah,
like a couple years ago, and now they're making, whatever.
yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So outside of Jamie, casting the movie, casting Bystanders, like were there people you knew, or like how did that come about?
So a lot of our casting was thanks to our producer Jeff Seaman, who was like crucial in getting off enough tapes. But also he was really instrumental in getting Hannah Fearman and Shani Morrow, who are in the film later in a role that I won't spoil, roles that I won't spoil. But he knew them from he directed a movie called Terror Trips, and he brought them on because they were leads in his movie. They were friends with him. I loved them both from like the things I've seen them in.
Yeah.
And they were like, absolutely, we'll come down for one day and shoot a scene. And I was like, oh my God. Everyone else read for their roles, and it was just like a casting call. And we just got a bunch of people, sent them materials, and just we found we got lucky that we found some incredible new and a lot of these people, a lot of our actors hadn't really been in films before. Like Bernie Botkin, who played Abby, has been in a couple things, and she's incredibly talented. And I worked on a film that she worked on previously, and I was really glad that she was interested in the film because I think she's so talented and is a chameleon basically. And everyone else just like read, and I was blown away by what they brought to their individual readings and everything like that. So yeah, it was a very quick process because we didn't have a ton of time. But it all worked out really well because we found I loved our cast. Everyone was just absolutely incredible.
I like that the group of the group of boys, like they all have their own personality. It's not just like like faceless interchangeable people. Like
Yeah.
they're
They
a
had
group of
oh, sorry.
no, go on.
I think they had the boys all lived together too for the shoot, so it was very funny. We were creating a social experiment by putting all of the frat boys together all the time, and they will become their own group of boys, and it was just very funny. And they all even if they only had a couple minutes on screen, they really developed their characters in really interesting ways, and I was so impressed with all of their dedication to their characters. It was awesome. It was really awesome to watch them all kind of flourish and find ways to make their characters deplorable.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, it's they seem like they would hang out, and they all have their own little personalities, and some of them may be more into it than others, and it just made it seem more realistic, I guess.
Well, thank you. Yeah, they were amazing.
You mentioned the hazy look to the movie was inspired by a movie you mentioned. I forget. I'm sorry.
Violation. Yeah,
Violation. Yeah. It was something I noticed right away. So what was the thought process there? Because it's kind of soft. It kind of makes it feel more cozy than, bad things happen.
Yeah. So I really loved Violation and how they made the whole point of the movie to me was the concept of memory and haziness of memory. And I really liked that kind of dreamy quality to it. It's real and it's serious, but something feels a little bit detached.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what and especially when they filmed exterior wood scenes at night or in twilight. And that was a big thing I talked to our DP Chance Madison about was if you're going to watch a movie before working on this, watch Violation and pay attention to how they use color and how they shoot inside versus outside, because that's kind of what I want to emulate here. It's not anything revolutionary, cool outside, warm inside. It's not revolutionary, but I really wanted to play with these different spaces and making them feel very distinct spaces, but also dreamy. And so he took that and ran with it. And I could not have been more happy with how he was able to kind of take that idea, but make it our own, while also following kind of in the footsteps of what they did in Violation.
Mm-hmm. No, it definitely, I noticed it right away. It definitely makes the movie stand out.
Thanks. Oh, I love that. Yeah, that makes me happy just because, it was important for me.
Mm-hmm. I know you went to the festivals with the movie. Did any of the cast come along?
Yeah, at our Horror Hound premiere, which was like our world premiere, most of the cast was there. The main cast was there. And they've come to almost all of them. The only one where I was the only one was in Philadelphia. But I always had at least one cast member there. And yeah.
Was that the first time they saw the movie? Because I know when we did Michael, who directed our movie, he didn't want any of the cast to see the movie until the premiere. I had seen it because I helped edit and everything.
So, yes. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, it was all their first time seeing it and like really seeing, like they had seen clips and stuff. Like some of them wanted clips for like their reels and everything, but none of them had seen the full thing. Like, and they were impressed, and I was very happy. Everyone was very
going in.
excited.
I wasn't sure if that was a smart idea, but afterwards I thought it was because being part of the editing process for my first time, when I saw the assembly cut, I was like, I don't think this is even a movie. What the hell?
Oh God, the assembly cut. Like everyone warned me about that, and I wasn't prepared. I was like, this is what the fuck? I was like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. Like, what did we do?
I really thought we didn't have a movie.
I have made a grave error. Joe Lynch said, "Did you walk into the room with a bottle of whiskey and a razor blade?" And I was like, "Oh my God." It's terrible, but like I definitely get that. The assembly cut is a real big hit to your ego. Even if you don't have one, like it's a real big hit to be like, humble my ass with the assembly cut.
Yeah. So were you like heavily involved in the actual editing?
Oh yeah. So our editor Barry was amazing. And we worked remotely, like because he's in Cincinnati and I'm in Maryland. So there was just a lot of late night emailing and like me taking really annoyingly detailed notes. He was like, "Oh, I'm not used to." And I was like, "I'm so sorry if this is too much, if like I'm being nitpicky and weird." He's like, "No, directors just like never really care this much, and I like it." I'm like, "Oh, cool," because I was just like going into like all of our takes and being like, take from this and this, and I was like, because I'm an editor too. Like again, not movies, but I do a lot of video editing, like for social stuff and for digital stuff in my previous work. So I like have some experience in the editing world. So I was just like, do this and this and this and this, and it was really fun and also exhausting and terrifying, as I'm sure you also know.
Yeah. And also, when you say you're an editor, just from my experience doing the show, I've noticed that filmmakers who are also editors, they have an easier job of being able to cut stuff that will just make the movie better and not worry about, I had a good experience, doing this, and not thinking like, well, maybe it doesn't work in the movie. I'm just thinking more of the experience of filming it. Where editors, like, you kind of know, like, this is, we want it to be this certain way.
Yeah, and like it definitely was part of my editor brain was thinking about that, and then other parts I wish I had been thinking more in that brain on set. Not in a bad way. I was just like, well, now I know for the future, like I can put more of my editor brain forward next time for filming. Because I was like, I don't know if my editor brain is the same as movie editor brain. I'm like, oh no, wait, they are very similar. What am I doing? So I know for next time.
Yeah. So what is it about horror movies that interested you to begin with? Like, I assume you're always a horror movie fan.
Oh yeah, I saw Jaws when I was 4. My dad's dad was watching me and like just didn't think it was a horror movie. He thought it would be fine.
Yeah, it's just about a shark and 3 guys out in the water.
Like there's barely a shark in it. I won't be scared. I didn't go in the ocean for years after seeing it. And of course, like I'm sure you've heard, I was so scared and I loved the feeling that I just kept going after it. And like that's also how my dad and I bonded a lot. He's a big horror fan, so That was our thing. My mom likes horror movies, but it's not her thing. And my parents are divorced. So when I'd go over on the weekends, we'd like rent a horror movie and watch it or go to the theater. And part of it was like that like relationship with my dad, but I just thought that like some of the coolest stories were told in horror. I got scared super easily. Like I was a scaredy cat, but I still watched like The Strangers freaked me the fuck out for days. The Paranormal Activity couldn't sleep with my light off for a week, and I was in high school. Like I'm not afraid to admit I was a scaredy cat, but I loved being scared. Like it was so exciting, and I loved finding the weirdest things I could find and make my friends watch them with me. Like I made all my friends watch Midnight Meat Train, and they all thought I was trying to make them watch porno. I'm like, no, it's a real horror movie by Clive Barker. And they were like, who's Clive Barker? I'm like, y'all are lame. But yeah, so it's just always been part of me. I've always
Yeah,
been the weird girl who likes
that's a
horror.
very homoerotic name, The Midnight Meat Train, but
You
it's
know, like, I guess.
that's why I watched it. No, but it's no. I was very disappointed.
I know,
But, no.
what the hell? What do you mean it's about a guy with a hammer?
Oh, that hammer.
That
But Jaws actually, I live kind of close to where Jaws was filmed. I'm on the Cape, so it's.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, you're on the
yeah.
Cape. Ooh, have you ever seen a great white shark like off the
I
shore though?
never have, no.
Okay,
I've seen sharks.
cool. Because like
So I
great
used to
whites spawn off of Cape Cod. I used to work on Shark Week. I like love sharks, so I'm like, well, they spawn off of Cape Cod. How have you not seen one?
yeah, I've seen I used to go squidding with my uncle on the Cape Cod Canal,
Ooh,
and
cool.
if it's really light out, you can just look down and see like stuff going through the canal. And we'd seen a shark going through the canal, which is weird when you're right there. But and
That's so
jellyfish, yeah,
cool.
but
I
never
love
a great
sharks.
white.
Uh,
Yeah, no, I like sharks.
honestly, probably for the best. Like, I respect them, but I don't necessarily like need to be in the water with one at the same time. Like,
Yeah,
know that I'm in the water with one.
yeah.
Okay.
You just know they're out there.
That's all I need. I have a healthy respect and fear of the ocean.
What were the movies that you said you love Jaws and some of these movies, but what was like the movies are like, oh, this is something that I would like to work in. Like, so I'd like to write about these movies. I'd like to eventually make one.
So I never thought I'd make a movie. I thought I never had what it took. I don't know why. I think I loved writing about movies. So I've always been a writer. I've always loved to write. I wanted to be a writer since I was a kid. Um, and when I was in college, I took a horror film class, and which was like a defining class of my life because in the class, my professor showed us High Tension, Alex Aja's film that, you know, we could debate about that movie until we're blue in the face about it, but like I loved it. And I wrote a
I
paper.
love
I
it
was a
too. Yeah.
sophomore in college. I like wrote my first paper about like the final girl and wrote like this paper about who is the final girl of the movie and realized, oh, you can do this for a living? Like people do this? And my professor said, "Yeah, girl." And I said, "No shit." And so I just decided to make it like my goal to just write about horror forever, even if it wasn't my full-time job. Like I always wanted to write or do something with horror. So in college did a lot about stuff about horror. I did freelance writing outside of college, and then I just have always been writing about it. And High Tension was a huge one, like obviously for that. But like the big one, a big one for me was the Blair Witch Project, which is like not, a lot of people say this, but I live currently 40 minutes from Burkittsville, Maryland, and I grew up in Maryland. So like the Blair Witch has always been like a specter over everyone. I used
Yeah.
to go camping and be like, that bitch is gonna get me, even if I wasn't in the woods near like, and that one was a big one for me in terms of like what you can do with so little. And I
Mhm.
just found that so incredibly beautiful and cool. And that was another like a film that was so simple but so effective for me. I saw it when I was 11 too, which is like probably part of it, but just the way that you can craft fear what felt so simple was just like my brain couldn't wrap around it. It was just so cool for me to realize that this is art. Like, this isn't just like, yeah, it's about fucking around in the woods, but it's also art. And
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
No, I I I always think because I do see some backlash against Blair where people just don't like Blair Witch today. And I think if you watched it much later when it came out, you probably have a different like feeling for it. Because if you watch it then, first of all, there weren't so many movies that like copied it later on, all the found footage movies. So it was like kind of the, and it was also like the perfect time of the internet where it was just out there. So there was enough to like get out about the Blair Witch and made you think maybe this is real. And there
We're
wasn't so much internet where you just knew it was fake. And so like
Well,
you had
that's the
all these
thing.
things going on, you know.
Well, we're never gonna get another one. And I'm not
Mhm.
saying that because people can't make the movie, but you're never gonna be able to fool people like that again. I
Right,
don't
right.
think. Again,
Yeah,
like
I
you're
agree.
saying, with the internet, there's just no way. And
Mhm.
like you said, there was just enough internet to have like the website and some things. There was like just enough of that to like really kick off a cool campaign, but not enough for people to immediately be like, fucking liars, it's just a movie. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just such a lightning in a bottle thing, but holy shit, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
Like,
it's a great the ending, which yeah, the whole movie, just even the buzz around it, like it was something everyone had to go see.
oh yeah. I
And
still love
another,
it. I don't care. I showed it to my
oh
husband
yeah,
for the
no,
first time
I
last
just
year.
I yeah,
My
I just
husband saw it for the first time last year. I showed it to him and he
oh
was
really?
like, he had a lot of anxiety watching it because I wasn't
Oh,
sure.
that's cool.
I didn't know if he was gonna like
Yeah,
it. And he did. He said it was actually really effective. So it's
oh
still, I
good.
think some people, I think it depends on the like perspective you have going
I
into it.
also
But
think what you're saying there, because my co-host on the show, she can't be here today, Annabelle, and me, we both grew up being out in the woods all the time.
yeah.
And so I think that also adds to the movie. If you're someone who didn't do that, you might not have the same kind of feeling towards it. Because you said you know about camping and stuff. And so I knew what
Yeah.
it was like to be out with your friends out in the woods at night.
Yeah, just like fucking around and like
Yeah.
throwing like just because that's what I did growing up. We would just like fuck around in the woods, like nearby houses and stuff. But still, I don't know. It's just like
Yeah, yeah.
that's where you like hang out with your friends. Who among us hasn't just hung out in the woods with our friends?
Right. Well, nowadays
And
I
if
don't
you
think they so much anymore, but
well, that's
yeah, that's what we
lame
did
because
back
it's
then. I agree
refining. It
100%.
builds character.
Yeah, let's bring that back. We're gonna bring back hanging out in the woods
Bringing
with your
back hanging out
friends.
in creepy houses in the woods for fun.
Yeah, I don't know what we're trying to tell people here, but
We were
they,
really cool as kids,
yeah,
is what we're trying to tell everyone.
exactly, exactly. Which I could tell by the shirt there. I don't have a cool shirt on at the moment, but I really like the Suspiria tie
Thank
dye. That's
you.
pretty sweet.
Thank you. I love it. It's very
Yeah,
comfortable and also Suspiria rules. So
definitely. Yeah. And what did you think of the remake?
I loved it.
I did too.
I
It's
love
one of
them
the few
both.
ones where I like both. Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, and cause it's so different. I love it because it's so different. That's why I loved it. I love he was just like, we're gonna just do something totally weird. And I was like, honestly, that's the way you should do it. I love that.
Yeah, when I heard about it originally, I was like, "Well, that's not a movie you can really remake. It's not really about like the plot." And then
I was
like you
gonna say
can't
it's
just
there's not really anything like there's something going on, but like not really, which is
yeah,
fine with me.
right. And you just like we're just gonna show like the light. I don't know, like capture the feeling, like. And then, but they went a completely different direction. I was like, "Oh, this really works for me." And I think that's what you should do with all a remake. If you're just redoing the movie, I don't really understand it. What's
I
the
agree
point of
with
it?
you. I think I like the way like Invisible Man with Lee Winnell too,
Yeah,
and we don't have to talk about the Wolf Man or
I
Wolf
haven't
Man.
seen it actually.
I liked it more than most people, I will
Okay.
say. But anyway,
Yeah, I've not heard a lot of good things, but then I started to see people led, and I was like, oh, all right. I think
I still think it's worth seeing. I
I'll
would
definitely
say
see it.
see
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah. I've had a bad weather here, so I haven't been up to. I don't have a theater
Oh
around me
no,
that I
I
get
can
to watch
only
it.
imagine in Massachusetts. It's gross down here in Massachusetts. I can only imagine.
Yeah, it's like 8 degrees, and like it's not a good not a good
Nope.
time. And
Nope.
yeah,
Mm-mm.
when I was a kid, I'd go out sledding, but we
Don't
didn't
want
even get
that.
enough snow. It's just icy, so you can't even go sledding.
Oh, it's just icy. Ew, that's the
Yeah,
worst. You're like, I'm not leaving my house. This is awful. I will
yeah,
jump
it's gonna
outside
go
and
fall
immediately fall to
outside
my
or
death.
something.
I'm like immediately
Right.
gonna crack my head open on the sidewalk.
Yeah, that's not a good time.
No.
So Bystanders out on video on demand. Where can people find it?
So it's on right now. It's on Fandango at home and Apple TV. It's coming to other places soon, and there'll be more. There'll be a bigger role. Like there's more places it's coming to. Just so if you want to follow me on social media, Blue Sky and Twitter at MB McAndrews or Instagram at mb.mcandrews, you can see what the rollout is and where it is, and whenever you listen to this.
All right. And will there be a physical release?
Hopefully, distributor is not deciding until they see what the interest is. So, if you want a physical copy of this, watch the movie, rent it, buy it, and let them know that there is interest to have a copy of it in your hands. Because I would love that.
100%, yeah. And congratulations, you're making it your first movie. It plays, at festivals, and now people can see it. That's a big accomplishment.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it is. It's awesome. It's a good feeling.
Yeah, you're very welcome. All right. Well, this was great. I'd love to talk to you again sometime.
Absolutely. This was awesome. This was such a fun combo about the movie, but also just about like movies in general. I love talking about horror. Like, obviously, love talking about horror movies. So
yeah, I don't mind it myself. So.